Welcome back to UView, the show dedicated to all things Arlington youth. I'm your host, Sam Dieringer. Welcome back to 8-Town Scoop, your Arlington youth news. First of all, a quick disclaimer: I want to apologize for the inconvenience with the non-clickable links included in last week's episode. From here on out, I'll emphasize the fact that the links and resources mentioned throughout the episode will be entirely included in the description, so you can find everything below. Anyways, now for the news. Headlining the mid-August scoop are some major developments in the plans for school next year. Before we get all into that, we first have a summer activity suggestion. Nothing beats a good old bike ride, right? Well, it'll be good to know that the Minuteman Bike Path has made some great new additions that can improve your overall biking experience this summer. First, a new route. The Minuteman Bikeway in Arlington has been given a mass grant that will be used to connect the bike path and the Arlington Reservoir together. This route will allow bikers to venture onto paths in the res without crossing over streets and roads to get there. Second, a walking poetry project. Created by Arlington residents Adria Arch and Jesse Brown, individual lawn signs are used to convey moving poetry as you walk on the bike path. A nice artistic touch overall. And lastly, of course, is the Blue Bikes. Blue Bikes are set to come to Arlington real soon and will be a great and easy addition to ride along the bike path. Be sure to check them out. The return to school decision. What does it look like? Well, as of August 12th, the day that I am recording this, I want to emphasize that nothing I'm about to say is completely set in stone whatsoever. For now, I'm going by what the proposed plan is, and I'll be sure to update you when this plan is finalized. The current recommended plan by the superintendent is this. All grades up to the high school level are returning to school with a hybrid model of learning pending proper ventilation in the buildings. The high school students, on the other hand, will start remotely, as proper ventilation must be put in place in the AHS building. There will be a solely remote option for all students at all levels. The recommended start date for school is September 21st, in order to give teachers and technicians of the building time to prepare for the approved plan. And lastly, the Arlington Board of Health will be setting up a testing site available to all students and faculty throughout the year. So, what does this mean? Well, we won't really know until it gets underway. But what we will know is that COVID-19 and its influence on school will make this year look very different compared to others. The last notice of this week's 8-Town Scoop relates to the upcoming Massachusetts Senate primary election, headlined by the battle between Ed Markey and Joe Kennedy III. If you're an Arlington kid that's now 18, please make sure to go out, get registered, and vote. This year in particular, you have the option to vote by mail, if you want, in the primary in September and the general election in November. If you want to vote by mail, you have to get your vote by mail application in by August 26th in order to get your ballot. If you haven't received your application for the ballot in the mail, make sure to call the town clerk's office, number listed below. Additionally, the guest for this week's Student Stories represents a group who has been heavily involved in this September's election and the fight against climate change. Hello, viewers, and welcome back to Student Stories, the segment that involves discussion with students and other community members about their work to make Arlington a more positive, welcoming, and all-inclusive place. And today, I'm here with Griffin Gould. He's one of the lead coordinators of Sunrise Arlington. Griffin, thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'm just going to start off today. For some of the viewers that may not know what Sunrise Arlington is, or the Sunrise movement in general, can you describe what this organization is?
Totally, yeah. So Sunrise is a movement to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process, mostly through the Green New Deal. We're one of the biggest youth climate organizations in the U.S., and we've been doing a lot of cool stuff in the past 3 years.
That's awesome. I know you guys have been putting together some really great events for the town for multiple years now, and I want to hear some examples of some of these events that you've been putting together for Arlington, what they look like, and how you've adjusted your events and what you've been doing during the pandemic.
Totally, yeah. So Sunrise Arlington actually started last October. So we haven't been around for too long, but we worked on getting folks out to the climate strikes and promoting the climate strikes in Arlington public schools. Recently, we've been doing a lot of just internal growth, things like trainings and doing outreach. And something cool that's coming up is next week we have an art build to make signs and T-shirts for Sunrise Arlington. But yeah, since the pandemic, we've mostly been, entirely been organizing online, mostly with Zoom, and yeah, we've been thinking about a lot of different things. Thinking about like, does it make sense right now in the context of the uprisings to be doing a lot of climate work, or how can we be showing up for the movement for Black Lives? Yeah.
Great. A lot of great work so far. It's been really great to see. And yeah, my next question was actually about how you've been collaborating with other groups in the past few months, because I know Sunrise has been collaborating and working with different groups during the Black Lives Matter movement and the protests that have been happening recently. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on what you've been up to in these past few months specifically in collaborating.
Yeah. A big thing that we've been doing is showing up for different actions and protests that have been going on in the past few months as marshals or safety guides, which are the folks who are wearing neon vests that are there to like guide people and keep everyone safe. And especially because Arlington and the members of the hub are generally more like people with backgrounds of higher privilege, or people who are less likely to experience police brutality. It's a really important way to show up for the movement for Black Lives right now. But we've been doing some really cool work within the hub, thinking about how can we be more anti-racist? How can we show up for the movement right now? Thinking about like, does it really make a lot of sense to not be doing climate work right now?
Yeah, that's definitely good to consider what else is going on in the world right now and how Sunrise can be there for other groups and uniting together. And I know that you just mentioned this a few seconds ago, but there is this art build coming up next week that looks really exciting. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little more on this art build for the community.
Yeah, totally. I personally haven't been very involved in the planning of it, which is cool. That other people have really like taken ownership of it, which is really cool to see. But I think, yeah, we're going to be doing some tie-dye for some Sunrise Arlington shirts, have a little bit of like custom merch, which we're excited about. And then we're going to be making some signs and banners, I believe, for potential future actions.
That's great. Wow, that's amazing. And that's a great way for everyone watching right now to get involved. It's a really easy way. It sounds really fun. Cool. And this next question is more geared towards the current primary that's coming up in Massachusetts, the Senate election between Ed Markey and Joe Kennedy. And I know that Sunrise, the movement in general, has endorsed Ed Markey because Ed Markey has been very involved in co-writing the Green New Deal and being really involved in Sunrise in general. And I wanted you to explain why you think this particular primary is really important in terms of Sunrise's overall objectives and movement.
Yeah. Like you said, Ed Markey introduced the Senate version of the Green New Deal with AOC. And yeah, he's just been a climate champion for like literally decades, with the Waxman-Markey bill back in the 80s. And yeah, he's been there. He's been championing this issue for literally decades. And at Sunrise, a big thing that we think about is building and maintaining our political power. And we really think that Ed Markey, much more than Joe Kennedy, is our ally. And in the Senate, he has a lot of standing. He has a lot of power. And it really doesn't make a lot of sense to give that up for someone who has basically the exact same platform with what we at Sunrise think of as like not as great of a record in the past for like not that much of any reason.
Yeah, it seems like regardless of the situation, this is a really important election. And if you can vote, if you're 18, please go out and vote. This is really important to continue to fight and have your voice heard. My last question for you today, Griffin, is that Sunrise has a very clear stance on climate change and it being a very pressing issue in the world right now. And I wanted you to really state on behalf of Sunrise your opinion about climate change and how everyone can work together to combat it.
Totally. Yeah. At Sunrise, we talk about how our solutions to climate change, they can't just be based in science and based in things like parts per million and like tenths of degrees, but they have to be based in like jobs and lived experience and the suffering that's going on right now, primarily in frontline communities of Black and brown people and inner city communities and low-income folks, and how like in order to really address climate, we have to address a lot of the existing inequalities and systems of oppression that allow climate. And it's those same systems that also allow things like corporate democracy and like the prison industrial complex and like big pharma to exist. And so, yeah, at Sunrise, we talk about like, it's not just the science of it, but it's like all of these systems that are enabling climate change to persist. And think about, yeah.
No, I didn't know if you were going to say specifically how can we get involved? How can other Arlington students get involved? Why should we care about this issue, and what can we do about it to help?
Totally, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, climate change is like one of the most pressing existential threats of our time right now. And yeah, I think that anyone who is paying attention to science and like has the time and capacity should get involved if they can. And yeah, to do that, you can follow our Instagram, which is at Sunrise Arlington, I believe, it'll be in the description. And yeah, and just feel free to like DM us there. Keep up to follow Sunrise National on Instagram. And yeah, just sort of stay tuned and like reach out.
You heard it right there. Thank you so much, Griffin, for coming on today. Thank you for speaking on behalf of Sunrise. And I hope you're doing well. Keep up the good work.
Thanks so much.
Hello, and welcome back to this week's Creativity Highlight. For this week, we have a co-feature of two AHS students, Elion Hewitt and Sierra Curro. They are sharing some of their beautiful original photography with us, a lot of nature photos similar to this background of Spy Pond right now. Sierra has her own website where you can see many more photos after watching this video. That's linked in the bio. All right, without further ado, here are some photos by Elion and Sierra. Welcome back to Pop List, the segment where I recite your favorites of a given pop culture topic and then throw them majestically into the air. Today, we're taking on the town and reciting your favorite Arlington takeout restaurants. Here we go. Not Your Average Joe's, Kickstand Cafe, Jimmy's Steerhouse, Town Tavern, Yasu, Blue Ribbon Barbecue, Punjab, and La Victoria. And that's all for UView episode 3. Thank you so much to all of you that are tuning in and watching this episode. Please continue to send in your comments, questions, and feedback so that we can keep making this show what you want it to be. We're also really excited to be announcing some big changes coming to the show really soon, so be sure to stay tuned for that. For now, stay cool, stay healthy, and on behalf of all of us, we'll see you next time.